Everyone, welcome to this week's Karma Cards. On the day I'm recording this episode is May 15th, and we're sort of coming down off of a really intense period of solar energy. We're coming down off of like Mother's Day weekend where we had huge amounts of that geomagnetic solar flare energy really dousing us with a ton of ascension energy upgrades and getting us ready for what it feels like as we're going through this ascension process. And in fact, I would say what it felt like was a full-on contraction. If we go back to our metaphor about how we're in the crowning and we're going through contractions now, that's what it feels like. And we will get more of those as we move forward. It's not the main event, but it's a precursor to main event energy that's coming in. And the space that we're at now is we're sort of on that downhill side where things are sort of like going back to normal. Like today, for example, the KP is at a 4. We hit 9. We hit 9 over that weekend. That's crazy. That was just, I think we hit 9 on Saturday and Sunday. So we got up so high. That's the highest it goes on the scale, is up to a 9. So I don't know what it looks like after 9. I don't even know if there's a measurement after 9, but we hit the 9. We're down at a 4. So it kind of feels like a decompression a little bit, but you might be noticing that you're still feeling really tired, maybe really body achy. You might still be moving through some of the energy that we had. During this time astrologically, there's not a lot to report. We're sort of in a quiet period. The only thing to note is that Pluto is now in its retrograde period. So it's at currently 2 degrees in Aquarius, which means it'll be traveling backwards back into the sign of Capricorn. So we're going to be touching back into Pluto in Capricorn. But right now we're still Pluto in Aquarius, and it's retrograding, which means the energy is internalizing. Pluto in Aquarius is about reclaiming power, specifically around issues like freedom. And with Pluto in Aquarius, you're going to notice that there's sort of like a group think about what things should look like what is freedom, and groups forming around all sorts of things about how the world can be made better. And during this time, there is an internal look at are these groups the right groups for me? Do I need to be grouping myself into something? Actually, by putting myself in this group, I start to feel like I lose a sense of freedom. I'm losing a little bit of my autonomy. And with the North Node in Aries, which is what we're desiring to move towards, that's independence. So the words freedom and independence here are coming in. And so during this period, we're more interested in sort of claiming that independence and that route to freedom rather than this sort of group think. So we do want to work with groups. This isn't to say groups are bad. It's to say that the group, if it starts to get too close-minded, it's not going to work. And so there has to be a respect for individuality within groups to allow the group to be healthy and flourishing and really moving towards the ideas of power and freedom. And so we're sort of re-examining that. Pluto is a group planet, so it means it's affecting us on the group level versus the individual level. So that's where you're going to see it play out more. So that's kind of the only shift I can see right now. We do have a full moon going to be coming on May 23rd, and that will be the full moon in Sagittarius, where we will have moved into Gemini season right before that. So we've got some shifts coming up, but this week is kind of quiet. And in terms of messages from my team, they're talking about focusing on the principles of spiritual alchemy. And these are noted as infinite love, infinite power, and infinite wisdom. And to really just meditate on what that means. How do we balance love, power, and wisdom? Because we're aware of where things go out of balance, and really we're leaving the density where power was more the dominant aspect that was being emphasized. So when you're looking at densities, you can also compare them to the chakras in the body, the 7 chakras in the center of the body, and look at it and sort of see each density from there. So the third density is is the solar plexus, and it deals a lot with issues about personal power, willpower, establishing your individuality, like what you want to move forward, and having to work with groups and communities, but also from that individual standpoint. It's one of the lower 3 chakras, and those are more concerned with power. When you get up to the 4th chakra, that's the heart chakra, that's where the love comes in. And then the upper 3 deal more with wisdom. And so we're really working on the lessons of the 4th density. That's the 4th chakra, the lessons of love, and learning what love is, and learning how love and power together are still unbalanced if wisdom is not applied. And so this week, they're just saying, let's meditate on those 3, but also focusing on wisdom. And wisdom is tricky because oftentimes people think wisdom is about what you know. And yet that involves ego, right? Because saying like, I know, like I'm the pinnacle, I've reached the top, when there's so much more to go, right? And they're asking us to recognize that there is a power in acknowledging what you don't know. And that true wisdom is acknowledging that from this level, I understand, and yet I also understand I don't know. I don't have the information about what happens beyond this point and up and so on, right? That there's more to know. In fact, everything that we're receiving now about the future or the higher timelines is really channeled information. And that's not to say it doesn't have value. I mean, I also channel. I'm not saying there's no value there. I'm just saying that this is information that's being given to us so that we can start working on these ideas, but we really don't know. We're getting the theory and not the practice. And that's an important distinction to make, because a lot of times people get those two convoluted, theory and practice. So theory is the understanding of how something works, and then practice is the ability to make something work. And I like to think about how in medical school, they teach the theory first and then they teach the practice. You could not become a doctor if you only understood the theory of how medicine or internal operating systems, organs work. You couldn't just go right into medicine. You need to actually go into practice and really utilize what you've learned and put it to use. Then you are considered to have enough wisdom to practice it professionally. We have to remember that when it comes, like even with the ascension process, we have a lot of theory. We have a lot of information coming in, but we haven't really practiced that yet. We're not going to know, and it's okay. It's okay to be that open vessel. In fact, I think it's, they say that the fool thinks he knows everything, and the wise man knows he knows nothing. So wisdom isn't about what you know, but the ability to understand that you know to a point, and then there's so much more that you don't know, and that you're open and you're the eternal student ready to learn. And so they're asking us to meditate on this point, and specifically the wisdom point is sort of the spear that they're hitting. So a lot of times with this trifecta, the spiritual alchemy trifecta, you'll see it in symbols like the fleur-de-lis, the 3-pointed flower, or the trident. So if you kind of think of it that way, they're like, think about or meditate on wisdom and recognize where you hold yourself out of wisdom because you believe you know something to be true. And this isn't just about bigger concepts like the things I've been talking about, but where in your own life are you blocking yourself because you believe you already know the answer? My team likens this to, they showed me once, they were like, try to be the river, not the stone. And when I asked them what they meant, they said, when you believe you know everything about something, you become static, like a stone. There's nothing that can be impressed upon you or moved through you. You're blocked, and therefore you've blocked more information from coming to you. Nothing else can come once you've decided, I know everything. I know all about this. I see it how it is. There's nothing more for me to see here. You become static in your energy. And they're like, that's not the wisest position. It's not the position we would recommend you taking because it closes you off to learning anything new. Rather, be like the river. You can have a direction you're heading in and believe that that direction is leading you to the place that you think it's going to go, but the truth is you don't know. In the case of a river, the river, yes, does it impress upon the land? Sure, because it wears it down, but the land guides the river which direction to go. So the river is open to being directed. And they're asking for us to look in our own lives and where have we closed ourselves from being directed? Where do we believe we know the outcome of something before we've even experienced it? I have people that I talk to in sessions and work with all the time who believe they know what's coming down the road or what the motivation is for someone else's behavior. And the truth is, you actually don't. You have an idea. But as soon as you tell yourself, I already know what that is, you stop investigating, you stop being open to receiving new information, and the information stops there. And that's an assumption. But we're working with it as if it's fact. And many times we do that because we have a story we're telling ourselves, and that story blocks us from being open and receptive. So we're being asked right now, where can we open ourselves back up? Where can we soften so that we can be more like the river and be guided versus hard like a stone that's immovable. And an easy way to do this is to just soften and say, I think I know what this is, but I'm open to being shown something different. And even just that statement opens you up so much. Now there's something that can be impressed upon you or shown to you, or you can be guided in. When you've decided you know what something is, you put that wall up. When you say, well, based on what I can see and perceive, this is the most likely thing that I'm looking at. This is the most likely outcome, but I'm open. I'm open to seeing it different, and I'm open to being wrong. Being open to being wrong is something that requires that spiritual humility. It removes the ego when you say, I'm open to being wrong. You've just opened yourself up to more information. And most of the time, that's a really positive and wonderful experience. So, this week, we're being asked to look where we've become a little too static in our thinking and practice softening and see what that allows into our life. If we're feeling like we're stagnating in some area of our life, if we feel like we're not getting the information we need or things aren't moving forward, we need, instead of to look outward and look at what's blocking me, look inward and ask what's blocking me. Where am I stagnating in my thoughts and beliefs? And how can I open them back up? How can I say I'm willing to see more here? I think I know what this is, but show me. There's probably something I'm not seeing. So I'm open to looking, and I'm open to being wrong, and I'm open to experiencing more. And then the universe can come in and guide you. And with that, let's look at this week's karma cards. All right, if you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks here, the planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what's the message you have for me this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you tune in is you just feel with your intuition, what guidance am I looking for right now? Am I looking for actions to take, which are the red, or am I looking for how things resolve, which is the blue? And of course, you can always choose both. And while you're choosing, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for May 15th through the 22nd. And the flavor of this reading, we've got Neptune. We haven't seen that one in a while. Neptune is an interesting card because it's not very active outward energy. It definitely is more a reflective energy. So it's more about like your spiritual ideals and what you're trying to inspire and what you can let go of. In the sign of Taurus, which is where we're at right now. So we're dealing more with our values and beliefs and the work that we can put in the 11th house, which has to do with groups, friends, organizations. This is the house that is ruled by Aquarius, and that's where Pluto is right now in Aquarius. So a little bit of that energy is in today's reading as well, right? So for those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to inspire others with your beliefs for humanity's sake. I feel like they're talking about reaching in and looking at those higher ideals, because again, that's what Neptune would be talking about. And so it's not just your everyday beliefs, but if you reach into your heart, if you're tapping into the love, power, and wisdom trifecta, what inspiring message comes through? And again, to inspire others doesn't mean you have to go around and like tell it to them. Just live from that place. If you believe that things are, that the world has the ability to pull through, live from that place, not from a place of doubt or fear, but rather what's in your heart. And so a great way to do this is to disconnect from everything and simply take time by going into your heart space. I like to turn everything off, sit down, close my eyes, put my hand over my heart, and just breathe from that space and really feel what comes in. And I never get a feeling of intense fear, scarcity, or lack. It's always this contentment and peace. And so check in with your own heart, see what comes through, and then act from that place. Mental action at this time: be prepared to sacrifice for the cost of your hopes and wishes. Again, the sacrifice here is more of an ego sacrifice, which is what the team was talking about before. Instead of believing you know everything, be willing to be open, be willing to be wrong, stay fluid, keep the mind, I was going to say wet, keep your mind wet, be like the river, be open and be moved by, again, you can have a direction, again, inspiration, direction, goals, hopes, and dreams, but saying this is the only path and this is the only way I get it, or, whatever the beliefs are, create the static feeling that creates a sense of stagnation. And you're going to have to sacrifice your ego at this point. Yeah, I think I know. Yeah, in the past I experienced this and that's very convincing to me. So I think I know how this goes. But the reality is I actually don't know because it hasn't happened yet. So I'm open, right? I'm open. Or I'm really worried this is going to happen. This is the pattern of behavior I've seen before. Therefore, I believe I'm in for more of this. I would like to be wrong. Show me how I'm wrong. I'm open to being wrong, right? So again, sacrificing the ego, allowing you to move closer to that which you actually desire. I find that most people don't stagnate so much on the things they want. They're very open to what they want. They stagnate around what they're afraid of. They hold on to fear, worry, lack, scarcity, doubt, all of that, right? That's where people stagnate in, because again, it's not that people are negative by nature. They're very protective and they're into their survival. So if they learn something from the past about, fire bad, obviously you want to remember that. You want that to lock in because you don't want to go stick your hand in fire, right? And in some cases, it makes sense to be like, noted, that's hot. Or that being like that bear, I'm not going to go up and pet a bear. Bears are dangerous, right? I'm not going to do that. That information is important to hold on to, but we do it about things that aren't that same level of like basic survival danger. We do it about our relationships. We do it in our jobs or our desire for job. We do it around money. We do it around growing a business. We do it, there's all about our bodies. We do it in all sorts of ways where we got information, something happened, and we go, clock it, that's dangerous, or that's wrong, or I'm bad for this, or whatever it is, and we hold on to it even though that information was relevant for that time or the result of a specific time, but it's not always the case, and it's certainly not helping you move forward. And this is where we have to like really get in there and ask ourselves, like, is this something I'm holding on to because I'm afraid of an outcome I don't want to receive, and therefore I'm trying to control things? Or am I doing this because it's like fire's bad? It will burn you. If I go stand in that, that's not good for me, or it's not safe, right? So it requires a little digging. So that's why it's not active as an outward expression. It's active very inward. And it's probably going to instigate like the subconscious to go, oh, you want to know why you do that? Let me kick this memory back up. Let's work on this while you sleep. And I'm going to show you why you're stagnating here. That's good information to get. It doesn't always feel good when we get that information, especially if we're not conscious that we're reviewing it. But ultimately, that's the key. And your subconscious mind loves you so much. It wants you to heal. So anytime you start digging around like this, it's going to go, here you go. There's one. Can you see it now? Are you ready to look at this? Physical action at this time. Yielding is the only way to use the most direct way and do it for the future. So again, they're letting us know there's nothing to go out and do. It's a dismantling right now. Yielding means being aware, surrender to stop and allow yourself to look at it. So yield, I surrender to the fact that there's something I need to see here because I feel blocked or stagnant. And that will be the direct path. And that is going to directly help you moving forward. All right, so now we're going to look at outcomes for Neptune in Taurus in the 11th house of hopes, wishes, and the future. The spiritual outcome at this time is the idealization of resources to maintain freedom. So again, I told you Pluto is retrograding right now. I feel like this directly talks to that. We're going to have to do a lot of like rethinking about how we're approaching these things. Ultimately, we are working towards freedom in all sorts of ways. Freedom from a dark system, freedom from wars and oppression, and freedom from divisiveness even. But it's time to review it. It's time to stop. It's not an active outward period. It's time to look at it like, are we going about this the right way? Are we overly idealizing something and not seeing the full picture? Again, I see that with a lot of activism, that there is a lot of, a lack of wisdom in it, because again, it's coming from this place of I ultimately know. And it's the question to ask where true wisdom comes in is, do you know? Do you see the whole picture? Or are you very connected to something specific? Are you looking at all aspects of it? Or are you very convinced by one and therefore that's the right one? There's nothing else I need to see. So that becomes very static. And when that happens, it becomes very destructive. And so it's a time period for reviewing, looking over things and going, all right, ultimately, this is what we want. I want all beings to be free. I want us to be open and expansive. Well, if we're static in our thinking, then that's the opposite of being open and expansive. Mental outcome at this time, confusion resulting from the practicality of associations. This is not going to be an answer you're going to be able to get from somebody else. Again, it's driving us inward. And that's one of the things that must happen in this period of time. If we're just kind of looking at the big overall spiritual plan, as we go closer and closer to this bigger moment, we have to go inward and inward, because the truth lives there. It's not going to live in someone else's opinion, no matter how well researched or documented or reviewed. It's not going to live there. That's not where your truth lives. And this is where people get really muddy about this. And it's a little divisive even saying your truth, because there is an ultimate truth we're sharing, but there is also a personal truth, our personal understanding of it. It gets very nuanced. And so we have to go inward and get clear and, like, again, free ourselves from the stagnation, because many times our personal truth is not necessarily the truth. I know. There's a universal truth, a greater truth. And in the law of one, they would call that the law of one is the great truth. And everything that comes after the law of one, they call a distortion of the law of one, which is sort of a nice way of saying like a twisting a lie almost. It's like, if it's not about oneness, it's not the truth. So there's many distortions, and these distortions are not that's why they don't use the word lie, because lie sort of has a negative implication. Distortion is just works like a prism. So there's, solid light coming through, that would be the truth, and a prism fragments that into several different layers, and that creates a distortion. Now you're seeing all these different colors when it was all unified as one unified light. Then you get the prism, and it creates all the fragmentation, all the distortions of that one true light source. So again, it's not that it's a lie, and it's not that it's totally inaccurate. It's just not the whole truth. So our personal truth gets convoluted, and we start to think personal truth is the whole truth. No, it's a fragment of the truth, right? So this is where we get into, and you can already feel it. Maybe you're listening to it and going, like, okay, like, can you make it more convoluted? That is not my attempt. My only attempt here is to explain where the confusion comes in, because a lot of times we take our fragment of truth and we declare this is the truth. And that's where, again, we come out of wisdom. We're now not in wisdom because we're working with a fragment of the whole, not the whole itself. We must learn to work with the whole in order to get as close to the wisdom we seek as possible, which means we have to acknowledge that inside that whole are many fragments that represent truth. All of them have a validity. All of them are showing us something, but they're only a piece of it. They're not the whole. And so as we ponder and explore that in all different layers, whether it's the personal layer or the collective layer, that causes our mind to go, no, can't work with that. Like, I need facts. I need it to be black and white. I need to break it down into a level where it's right or wrong, good or bad, yes or no. So that's because we're in a system of duality right now. And we have to understand that beyond that, there's a bigger truth. Beyond duality is a bigger truth. And we're going to be struggle bussing a little with that. And again, we don't have to have it all. We just have to be open to, okay, so this is what I see as the truth. I'm going to be open and acknowledge there's probably more to it than what I can see, or than what I'm comfortable with, or than what I can comprehend. And in doing that, we lessen that confusion to some degree. It doesn't necessarily get us to the answers that we're looking for, but it'll bring us closer to being open and receptive to receiving more, which is the goal. Physical outcome at this time: sacrifice resulting from the productivity of your circle of friends. So trying to talk about these concepts with groups of friends, with your inner circle, whoever you would work this through with, it's not going to get you anywhere, really. I mean, you can talk about the concepts. It's not like, keep it to yourself. Go ahead. It's just, if you're trying to get to that ultimate, like, you might find that you end up more confused, no matter how productive the conversation is. The hardest thing about this is it's like this week's like a question mark in terms of how energy moves and how you feel about it. It's not giving you a decisive feeling. It's hard. It's, Neptune is very nebulous, very etheric. You can't really hold it, right? It's like trying to hold a cloud. You want to, but it's impossible, right? And so rather than trying to get to the answer and work together to like ultimately agree on something where you're going to come together and be like, oh, I found the ultimate truth, or oh, I've discovered this and now it's very clear. I feel like the conversations just leave you with more questions than a sense of answers. And so you're going to have to, again, surrender that too. Like, okay, there is, in this case, it's more about getting comfortable with an open-ended question in life than feeling like you have all the answers. There are many people on this planet who would love to have all the answers and who work really hard to seek for those. And yet we never quite seem to find it, do we? We've been doing this as as human beings for God knows how many years, and yet we still don't have an agreement on how things work. We don't have an agreement on how society works. We don't have an agreement on what religion is accurate. We don't have agreement, and we've got to learn that some stuff is like whatever floats your boat, as long as you're not harming others or yourself. Knock yourself out, right? Just keep it, recognize, like, do the agree to disagree, or like to each his own, right? This is the thing we have to get to, which means there's never going to be a satisfactory answer outside of yourself. You're only going to be able to seek it from within, and many times you're not going to be able to fully communicate that without, no matter how intent you are on trying to share it. Even this message is kind of hard to share because I feel like I'm telling you, be okay with not really getting it. And I guess that's the best way to summarize it. Understand that you might feel frustrated that you don't have the answer, but it doesn't mean something productive isn't happening just because it's not solid. There's the way wisdom works, since we're focusing on that particular one, is to be in a flow. And the universe in and of itself, source energy in and of itself, seeks more knowledge, which means there's always more. So if source itself is like, what else is there? That means information is infinite and that there's only more information to collect, which means how could we have a final answer on anything if everything's always changing? I mean, look at science is a great example of that. They want finite answers, and they keep finding like, well, we thought we knew what this was, but it actually looks like this now. And it will continue to morph because that is the very nature of the universe, that source is always seeking to know itself more, and as it seeks to know itself, it finds more of itself to know, and therefore there's just more and more and more information. So rather than believing we can put anything into a box and put it to bed and go, I got it, it's done, we need to move into the situation where source finds itself, where it's like, I want to know more. What else is there? What don't I know? I thought it was this, but there's more, right? I'm excited to be learning more. I'm excited to be an eternal student, just like source, which is so interesting because the irony is source is creating it, but source is learning from its creation all the time. And that's how we mimic source as well. We're creating our life, but we're always learning from it all the time. And so this week is more of a meditation on how to be in flow, be in the river, be easily, be open. You can have a direction you travel in, but be open to being guided and shown the path of ease, and allow yourself to travel that way. It's a much easier and efficient way to travel through life than to be the heavy stone who is stagnant and stuck and refuses to move because it already knows where it is. Then you don't move anywhere. So stone or river, you get to choose. And with that, I hope you have a beautiful week. Mwah.